Thanks for joining us for the 2023 online service. We're so honored and thankful that you've joined us. Now, we've given this Sunday to our Dream Team because they've worked so hard this past year. And we've done this for the past few years, giving them an opportunity to celebrate with their family during this holiday season. And we're so thankful that you're joining us online today. Now, we're in between Christmas and New Year's, and this is an opportunity for us as a church family to look back on 2023 and look forward to 2024. And I'm sure you're doing the same with your personal life and with your family. And as I've looked back over this past year, over the big news stories and all that's taken place within our church family, I thought it was appropriate that we give you a little glimpse back to remind us what's taking place in the news and Authentic Church in 2023.
This summer could be described as the summer of strife.
Twitter is now X.
Some are even calling it the Twitter killer.
We start in the Middle East.
Hamas has launched the biggest attack on Israel in years.
The Israeli military saying over 1,000 people were killed.
We hear the bullets whistling when they pass by.
Hamas say they're holding between 200 and 250 hostages.
The dense haze spreading from New England to Washington, D.C.
Witness the blood moons rise.
The fires are one of the worst natural disasters in Hawaii's history. The death toll stands at 115 people.
Southern California is under its first ever tropical storm watch.
A once-in-a-century deadly deluge slamming Hong Kong.
My government will continue to take action to bring down inflation, to ease the cost of living.
Bombastic side eye.
A group of orcas appear to be attacking and even sinking some boats.
Racing against time to find that missing submersible.
$250,000 a ticket.
Bankman-Fried now faces more than 100 years in prison.
First Republic is now the third major bank to fail since March.
The House has been paralyzed without a speaker for nearly 3 weeks.
This is embarrassing.
There have been concerns for months about Senator Feinstein's health.
Look at the candles on that cake. This is the oldest man alive.
Strain of
The U.S. linked the balloon to a vast Chinese military surveillance program.
Oh, they hit it!
Do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Flames and plumes of smoke lit up the sky in East Ohio after a train derailed.
It has been 1 year since Russia began its full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
If Russia stops fighting and leaves Ukraine, the war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ends.
The Israel-Hamas war is sparking an increase in Islamophobia and anti-Semitism.
2023 was quite a year, full of crazy, eventful moments. Within the church, we had some awesome opportunities to serve our community, to love one another, to experience VBS and see the kids' extravaganza, to celebrate together our God and who He is and how great He is. And then in the world, so many different things took place around the world. And it was interesting. I've forgotten a lot of things that take place this past year. Forgotten about the submarine that had imploded, and I forgot about the wildfires that caused the Canadian wildfires that caused havoc here in Ohio, turning our skies whatever color that was. But I also noticed that there was a drastic difference between what took place in the world and what was taking place in the church. And maybe it's just the way we want to portray ourselves. And that's a good argument that we're just putting our best picture forward, and we lost people this year. We lost the things that took place this year that caused us hurt and pain. But overall, it was a year within the church that was blessed and full of peace and unity, working together to see things happen. But in the world, it was quite a different picture. There was conflict and disharmony and disorder, dysfunction, a sense of meaningless on what was happening, confusion, and lots of death. And you got to ask the question, where was God in all that? It's interesting when you look at that, ask that question, and you go back to Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, of course, if you're part of our church at all, you know that I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 1 a lot, because Genesis chapter 1, 2, and 3 contain so much for us. But in Genesis chapter 1, it begins in verse 1, in the beginning was God. God created the heaven and the earth was formless and empty. Darkness covered the deep waters. That's quite a picture that the author is portraying for us, that there's a place of this deep waters and chaos. And anytime you see those deep waters or the stirring of the waters, there's something going on that is called, in our English, called formless and empty. In the Hebrew, it's tohu and vohu. Those two words are, tohu means simply that it is formless, it has no form, and vohu means empty. So in the English translation, it's done really well. Except for in the English translation, we miss the fact that those two words are brought together. And when they're brought together and compounded, it takes on an even greater, deeper meaning. That means tohu vahohu, which means literally that it is a place of conflict, a place of disharmony, a place of disorder, dysfunction, meaningless, confusion, death. And God says that in the beginning, that's what was there. And where was God? Well, verse 3, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. God was in the midst of the confusion. He was in the middle of the conflict. He was in the middle of the place that was a place of dysfunction that had no meaning, that was formless and void. He was there. And then He spoke. And He said, "Let there be light." And we just did a whole series on Him declaring the light of the world. And then He creates separates the waters and the earth. And then He creates the sun and the moon, the producers of light. And then the plants come forth, and then the animals. And each time He describes this creation, He says it was good. And then He does one more thing. On that sixth day, He completes that day by saying that He creates man in His image. And when He creates him, you got to ask, well, why create man at this point? And He tells us exactly why He created them. Then God, in verse 28, then God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it, reign over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and all the animals that scurry along the ground." Then God said, "Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food. And I have given every green plant as food for all the wild animals, the birds in the sky and the animals that scurry along the ground and everything that has life." And that is what happened. He creates man to partner with man. He intentionally brings humanity, a community of partners, man and women, to partner with him. And when he does that, he calls it very good. Verse 31, then God looked over all that he had made and saw that it was very good. In the midst of the tohu vahohu, the conflict, the dysfunction, the disorder, the meaningless, God says, I'm bringing order to this place. I'm bringing this place that is not working the way that I intended it to be. I'm bringing it to a place I intended it to be. And he calls it very good. The word we studied just a few weeks ago was shalom. And we found out that the word shalom is a word that means peace, but also means completeness, harmony, and all is as God intended it to be. See, the difference between what the world is doing and what the church is doing is the fact that we have the peace of God. And over the darkness and the conflict and the disorder of our lives, God is there, and he's partnering with us to bring that shalom, return things as it should be. I'm praying that in 2024 that you're able to experience that very good of God. That the tohu vahohu of your world, the dark, scary pieces, that place that is full of dysfunction and disorder and meaningless, would be removed and replaced with God's peace. Why we call and emphasize and always return back to the 5 F-bombs of Authentic Church, that we want to help you follow Jesus Christ, find freedom, and then fulfill your purpose. Our prayer for you, 2024, is that you would experience all that God has for you, and that you would return to what God has intended for you. Blessings, and Happy New Year.